Hi, everybody, and welcome to Spooky Season 2024. My name is Yahola Tiger. I am the host of the Warcry podcast. And let's see here. Joining me, we lost Levon. That's all right. Joining me, you know, actually, before I get to the panel here, I appreciate everyone who um, is going to be joining this live and hearing this on the back end. Um, but joining me first, Mr. Dono from Rez Scares. How's it going, man?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good. Are you um can you kind of tell everybody about yourself for everybody else who doesn't know who you are?
I'm Donald. I'm from Ontario, Canada, and I have a podcast called Rez Scares. It's now Rez Scares and More because I'm adding other things to it. But yeah, and I'm happy to be here tonight.
Where are you based out of?
Ontario, Canada. So I guess I can tell my res. It's Curve Lake First Nation. So
Gotcha. Um I lost her for a second, but Miss Levon, how's it going? Are you doing all right tonight?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm great. Can you let everybody know where you're located, what tribe, and uh, what you got going on?
Yeah, I'm Levon Rodriguez. I'm from the Wind River Reservation. I own the original Ghost Stories on Facebook.
Man, Wind River. What'd you think of that movie?
Uh, yeah. Everyone asks. I get a lot of people asking me that, but it is that scary. It's scary up there. I mean, it's a big reservation. I love my reservation, but things need to change. But I guess it's every res too.
Mm-hmm. And lastly, you heard him on my podcast before, as you've heard Mr. Dono, is Rod from Lodge Tales. How's it going, Rod?
Oh, good, good. Yeah, I'm Rod from Lodge Tales. I'm from the Blackfeet Indian Reservation, and guess we're here to tell some spooky stories, huh?
Yes, sir. Um, I appreciate these three coming on. I've been plotting and planning this, and I'm really glad to have these people on, and I'm glad that we're going to be hitting a lot of new ears with this episode. And um, I'm gonna just cut right to it, guys. People want to hear scary stories tonight. It is Halloween night, spooky season 2024, and one topic that I get a lot, and I'm sure you guys get a lot too as well, or you've heard things, is the little people. Um, that's
Mhm.
the first topic for tonight. If you have a topic, please put it in the chat, and we will try to hit it where we can hit it. Um, but just starting off, ladies first. Levon, you got any little people stories that you may be thinking about?
I do. I have my niece.
Oh no, we lost her. Are you guys still there?
yeah,
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, we lost her there. Um, let's see if she'll get back in. But speaking on, like, just kind of moving forward, I'll get her back in here. Do you guys have any? Either one of you? I guess I know. Hey, Rod has told his story. And that's pretty creepy. Um, but do you guys add into our? Okay, never mind. She's back. Sorry, Levon. Sorry, you keep dropping out on us.
Yeah, it's my internet. I'm sorry.
What were you saying?
The
I
little
apologize.
people. We have one up on our reservation where the little people actually brought a game warden back. He got lost. He got turned around up in the mountains. Started getting scared. It was getting cold, and he said that he just sat down. He didn't know what to do because if he moved anymore, he could get more lost. He said while he was laying there, he kind of opened his eyes and these little people were standing around him.
Mm.
And they decided, well, I think they were trying to decide if he was good or not. I don't know. They were just staring at him. But finally, he said that they lifted just one of them lifted a deer above his head and start carrying it. And the others kept, telling him, come along, come along. They took him to their village and they fed him and they kept him warm that night and everything. Next day, they showed him how to get out of the mountains.
Man.
Yeah.
And just kind of just curious, with your people, do you guys also believe in they're good? You know, there's a good and bad side to those
Oh yeah,
beings.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I was
What?
always told, like, my grandmother. Both my grandmothers. They were big influences, and they always told me, "Leave them alone. They'll leave you alone. They're here to protect the animals and our lands. They're here to protect us, even, But just be careful because, like with us, there's good and bad.
Yeah, for sure. Donovan or Rod, y'all got something, man? I know y'all could talk probably for days on this. I know there's all types of creepy stories out there.
Yeah, mine aren't very creepy. Um, but I've seen one at one of my buddies' hunting camps, and then there was like a fallen down tree, and it looked like that's where they would live. But I was thinking that, and then I was walking up a hill, and I seen one, and it looked like a little fern, like his hair, and then he had uh, skin. It looked like either tree bark or like rock with moss on it, like a bunch of little rocks. He had great big black eyes, and he was like, you know how you sit as a little kid with your hands on your chin on your hands. He was sitting like that, and I kept staring at it, and he was looking at me, and I didn't want to tell my buddy because I didn't know if he'd be scared. And then once I got closer to the spot he was at, it was just that fern. It was just a plant. So he took off, or he sunk back down. I don't know if he was underground. Um, we also have some around my house. When I go out back, and this is when I was first started getting into the traditional ways. I used to go out back and do my offerings and my thank yous and all that. And my uncle, he was walking. There's a road behind our house, and it's through the woods. And he was walking back to his house, and I think he said about 7 little people around me, 7 to 10 of them, and
Mm.
they were standing there. Yeah, I didn't see them. Like I'd see the like a little twig move, or leaves like rustling, but there was no wind. But yeah, they were there, and I don't know if they're helping me. I think they were. That's what I got as a feeling, but I didn't hear this story till like a few months after it. He had told it to my aunts, and we were at our family reunion, and they told me that. And there was also um, one of the younger boys, like years ago. It must have been, I'm gonna say 30 years ago. He would see a bunch of little people behind my head, um, just running around, and he was scared of them, so he never walked down our way anymore. So yeah, but I see them as helpers, and they can be mischievous. I don't know the bad side of them, and I don't really want to. So I put out like dimes, shiny buttons. There was like little colored jars in the woods that I've found, and I don't know if it was them or if they were just from a long time ago. But yeah, I respect them, and uh, give them tobacco as well.
Hey, someone in the chat says somebody's smoke alarm is yelling for a new 9-volt battery. I told y'all this is gonna be real. This is real Indian live stream tonight, y'all. I told y'all. But go ahead. Sorry, Rod, if you were about to say something.
Oh no, I was just thinking about his story. What kind of stands out to me is the way Donna was describing those little people are different than the ones we see and that are traditionally there with us, and sweat lodges, whatever different ceremonies that they're around. Like ours look like people, like actual, like a snapshot of the 1700s and shrunk to a foot tall, roughly. They could be different sizes, but usually they're around a foot tall. So I've always thought that was kind of fascinating hearing other people's stories about how they look. Like even the crow. The crow are just straight across the Yellowstone River from us, and theirs look like, I guess, little, how would I say, little savages. I guess they even got kind of sharp teeth. Now, any of the crow out there can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's how I heard them talk about how they look. So it's just interesting.
Yeah, on the page, I think some of them said they look like sticks. And I was
Oh,
talking to Rod. We were talking, and ours looked like people too, just like a foot tall, kind of weathered.
yeah, they
So
just
I
look
don't
like
know.
old natives.
Yeah, I don't know if it's different, the stick people and the little people, but I don't know.
You
I
know what I
know.
find
One,
is, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say
Mm-hmm.
one thing in common that they all have is that they're really. Everybody talks about them being really strong. They're really
Mm.
strong. I've
Mm-hmm.
kind of noticed that too. Everyone you talk to, that'll be one of the commonalities in the stories is that their strength.
Yeah. Yeah, like the game warden said, one lifted a deer or elk, I can't remember which one, over his head, and it was like nothing to him.
Yeah, that's one thing that I had heard a story back, old church grounds. They'd be all out there in the camp houses. This is out Eufaula, Oklahoma area, and they were saying that this, I guess this pastor, I don't know, I can't remember if they said he wasn't living right or something. I can't remember the full part of that part with the story, but they said one night, I guess he had fallen asleep outside, kind of just dozed off, and kind of middle of the night, and they looked over and they said they could see, it almost looked like, how like ants carry something way big.
Hmm.
It's like he said,
Yeah,
kind of looked like that, like they were. He's like, it's just a couple of them, just kind of moving him across towards the woods, and I can't remember what they said, where he went.
so I got a story for you guys about these little people here. Let's see, how does it go? So a long time ago, I don't even know when it was, like time period. Like I wish I could gauge that. But this was way back before the colonizers came to these lands. It was just the natives, and this happened in the Blackfeet territories. It happened to our tribe. Uh, they were getting ready to go out to get war honors. They hadn't gotten war honors in a long time, and it was around that time that they were all kind of itching for it. And here was this boy. Um, he wanted to go with them, and his dad was the war chief, and his dad told him, "No, you're too young yet. You're too young." He was been about 12 years old at the time. He's like, "You're still too young yet. I want you to come with us." It had been about a couple years before they raided. They wanted to go raid and stuff, and they haven't done that. So everybody was excited. And then, when you leave camp, they're all dressed up and they're all painted. They got all their, war bundles and war shields, all the different medicines that they have, and they're all decked out and they leave. Well, that boy kind of he tailed along with them, but he hid so that that war party couldn't see him. And they were about halfway to this place to where they were gonna go and look, and really make because they had an idea of where there would be other tribes that they could raid. And so they were going to this area and they seen that boy. His dad seen that boy. Well, his dad's brother was on the war party too, and they get that boy up there and say, "You weren't supposed to come with us. Why'd you disobey me?" He said, "You're too young for this. You can't be. You shouldn't have done this." And they were getting mad at him, and the war chief tells his brother, he says, "I don't trust anybody else to bring him back and to make sure he's safe. So I'm trusting you. You go bring him back and then catch back up to us. And by the time we're there, you should be back." And his brother was kind of mad. He didn't want to go back because it's been a while. Like, God, this kid. And so finally, all right. and they start riding back. Well, they don't even get halfway back from where they were at. And his uncle told his nephew, he said, "Look," he said, "if I'm gonna let you go right here, but if you follow us, if you turn back and start trying to follow us again, I'm just gonna hit you in the head with my war club and let you roll down on one of those coolies and say the enemy's got you. You know, I'm not gonna play this. I've been waiting too long, and for you to come and disobey your dad and do that, and I have to pay for it. No, I'm gonna hurt you if you come back. So go now, so I still have time to catch up to them." And that boy's all right. So he starts heading out. Here he turns around and he starts following again. His uncle sees him and he waits for him to get atop of this hill. And that's where he ambushed him. He jumps out and sure enough, he hits that boy on the head with that club. Caves in his skull. And that boy goes rolling down into that coulee and he leaves him for dead, you know. He turns around and he just tries to catch back up to that war party. And that boy's laying there and he can't move, but he's still alive and he's just laying there. He can talk and everything, but you know he's really in rough shape. Then he hears these coyotes coming. Next thing you know, they're kind of circling around him, and he's telling those coyotes, is just laying there and he's saying, "Oh, please, you know, don't eat me, you know, don't kill me." He says, "I used to play with you guys and those coolies. I used to play with you when I was smaller, and I would feed you guys too. So please just take pity on me. Don't kill me." And you see, you know, he heard them talk. They said, one of these old coyotes come forward and they were talking, and one of the coyotes said, "Is what he's saying true?" And this old coyote come up. He says, "I remember him." He said, "Yeah, he's speaking the truth. He used to play with us and feed us. I remember him." And just then they sing this song. They were singing this song, and when they were done singing it, they all turned into those little people. And they're standing around that boy. And that old man asked him, he says, "What happened here? You know, what was going on here?" And that boy told him, "I just wanted to go on a war party. I just want to be a warrior. That's all I want to be. And my uncle did this to me, you know." And he says, "Well, we're going to take pity on you. We're going to help you." And that old man starts doctoring that boy. This old man was the chief of the little people. And he started doctoring that boy. He doctored him to where he can sit up, and he didn't even have any wounds anymore. It's like they were all gone, like not even there, not even a cut or a scar or nothing, just gone. That boy kind of sits up and he stands, and those little people, that chief tells him, he says, "Okay, we'll go there and we'll help them fight. We'll go to war with your people, and we'll help them fight against their enemies." He says, "But there's going to come a time when you're going to need to sing this song." And this song also allows us to change into a coyote because we can
Mm.
travel faster as coyotes. So I'm going to teach you this song. And when that time comes and you'll know, just sing this song. And so he teaches him. And one by one, all those little people start turning into coyotes again. And then
Mm.
even that boy turns into the coyote and they start running. They travel all the way to this battle site. And by the time they get there, geez, those Blackfeet are surrounded. They bit off more than they could chew, and they were getting whooped. And those little people and that boy, they all went running in there, and they all start fighting. But what the Blackfeet were seeing, those those little people were invisible. They didn't even see him. They didn't even see that boy. But what they saw was just at random, a horse would rear up and its stomach would be pierced, and it would dump the rider, and then all of a sudden that rider looked like he was getting stabbed up and he would just pass away. It was really
Mm.
brutal. They were really strong. What those little people were doing was getting under the horse with their spear and going straight up until that rider got bucked off or fell off or was pinned, and they would go over there and just stab him with their spear. And those Blackfeet start seeing that bad uncle said, "That's my war medicine. You see how powerful I am? That's my war medicine. It's working." You know, he would start lying. And As that all went down, they won the battle, and those Blackfeet were taking their trophies and all their honor that they wanted to take. They were taking it, counting coup on them and all that. And once they did all that, they start riding back. And those little people and that boy, they had changed back into coyotes and they were riding. They already rode back to camp and they were sitting outside the camp and they were waiting for this war party to come back. That war party, as soon as it started coming back, all of those people start rejoicing and they were mourning the ones that didn't make it that were being carried back on their horses. And it was one of those kinds of scenes. And um, that bad uncle was saying, "Yeah, we had success because of my war medicine, and everybody here witnessed it. The sun and the moon witnessed this." And they were talking like that. And anyways, that boy says, "I can't take this anymore. I'm gonna go in there and I'm gonna tell him what happened." See, his dad didn't even know his uncle did that to that boy. And his dad was looking around, "Where's my son? Where's my son?" And he just comes up, "Oh, I'm glad to see you. I'm glad you made it back." He says, "No, Dad, you got a lesson. This is what happened." And he told him the whole story. And when he was telling that story, his uncle would interrupt him. Don't listen to him. He's just a kid. He's just telling tales. He's not telling the truth. Don't listen to him. And there was an elder. One of these elders stepped forward and he says, "Now you wait. What this boy is saying is very serious. We need to give him a minute and time to finish what he's saying and to try to, prove it to us. We need to hear him out." And so that boy finished telling his tale, then he starts singing that song. And when he sang that song, those coyotes came in. They just walked right in the middle of that crowd of Blackfeet, in between their legs. And as soon as he was done, they were close to that boy. They're all sitting around that boy, those coyotes. When he was done, they all turned into little people. And all the people witnessed that. And that chief started telling everybody, that little person, that chief, he says, "What this boy says is true. We did find him in that coulee with the wound to his head, and he told us what happened. And he also told us that he wanted to be a warrior, and so we helped him, and we went to battle with him." He says, "And what you guys need to understand here is that this boy fought harder than anybody on that battlefield. When we got there, that boy tied himself to a savasberry tree by his ankle, so he couldn't leave the field of battle, and he fought." And so, just as a side note, after that, like since then, Blackfeet, the best warriors, would always stake themselves to the ground in the middle of a battle. The bravest, the best warriors, and a lot of the other tribes, if they seen a Blackfeet stake down, would they just avoid them unless they thought they could do something about it. But more often than not, they were avoided because of how well they could fight. Well, anyways, um, that little person, the chief, says, "I'm going to help your people. I'm going to help your people, and I'm going to give them these gifts." And he gave them, different artifacts, bundles, and different things that went along with those bundles. And he taught them these songs. And that became a warrior society, which we call the Brave Dog Society or the Crazy Dog Society. And that is still a live functioning society in our tribe today. We got it from them. And it's still there. It's still an active society. The only difference is the war spirits in those bundles are asleep because we don't war like that anymore. But
Mm,
it's still the medicine, the bundles, the society is still there.
man, that's a great story. Um,
Yeah.
man, that's a great story because a lot of those stories, especially here, I'm Cherokee and Muskogee Creek. That's my two main people that I have, and they always talk about little people with in regards to medicine. Now, if you're a non-native listening, I know Rod and I had this conversation on his show. Um, it's a loose definition for magic, but it's not magic. It comes from a place. Um, it comes from the spirits. It comes from those types of that type of energy, that type of beings. And growing up, I had heard, um, especially out as you get more east of Tahlequah, where I'm from, is it gets really, it's like hills, and then you start getting into the Ozark Mountains as you get into Arkansas. I'd always been told or heard, that those little people would be kind of like watchers almost, like they would notify the person they're helping that someone's there. And I know Rod and I talked about this on his show, and I believe on my show too as well. Um, Levon, have you heard anything like that around your
Yeah,
way?
they carry medicine. Well, I was told they're like us, but they do protect us as well. I was telling Rod one time I went to the mountains and I was with a cousin looking around. And when you take things, we were told to leave silver, shiny, just shiny things for them because if not, they would come and retrieve whatever they wanted. And so that's what we would do. But while I was up there, I saw a little medicine pouch, a little medicine pouch. I mean, yeah, it was small and it was
Mm,
just hanging in a tree and it was on a cedar tree.
mm.
When I saw that, I left a couple coins and I got out of there because, it was sacred to them. So, yeah.
Don't know. You heard anything like that? Anything, regarding medicine with the little people?
Not so much. Well, I know that we're told to give them like tobacco, like our that's one of our four sacred medicines. Um, and to leave it for them if we notice that we're on, I want to say on their land, or where they dwell, because like I used to work at an island. We'd go over and we'd take kids over, so I'd go and clean it, and I noticed like there's sticks, like branches snapping. The leaves were ruffling, like no breeze. There was right in the bush, like, and on the island. And so I knew enough. I think it was them, so I knew enough to tell them what I was there for, what I was doing, and then I gave them tobacco, because I know that, as as Levon said, if you don't leave something, that they will come and take stuff. Because I've heard that some of my friends have had that happen to them, where they will, and they know it's them. So yeah, that's what I got.
And they be taking stuff like, I had something crazy, not crazy, but something I can't remember what I was looking for. Oh, I was looking for tea bags, to like make tea. And I'm sitting there
Ooh.
and I'm like, oh, just like really looking. I looked through every cabinet. I turned every cabinet. And I don't know why. I don't know why. But then literally I opened up the cabinet right in front of me and it was sitting right there. I had just looked there. And I think that was right after me and Rod's episode because we was talking about them.
Oh my.
Um, I think they let us know that they're around sometimes.
Yeah, gonna have to do an offering tonight, I think.
Yeah, I'm gonna do something, man. God, but do you guys have any other stories you want to share about? I call them LP, but little people. Before we move on,
Oh, that's all
Mhm.
I know.
all right, let's get to the chat real quick. I want to say hi to some people. Let's see here. Iris Dovey asked if the show's begun. We was on Indian time. I apologize, but we're here. Um, Lisa Ray, happy Halloween. Looking forward to hearing looking forward to hearing some amazing stories. Mysterious Nocturnum, what's going on, brother? Hi, my spooky friends. Me B, how's it going? And Richard says, "What's up?" Watching a few lives. He's back and forth tonight, but you guys will not want to miss these stories because a lot of these stories you may not hear. Obviously you can play this back, but a lot of these stories, are you know special in a sense of like we have four different reservations here. I don't think you see that a lot, I'm really thankful for these three people to come on and and share their stories. The next topic that I want to talk about, and if you don't, if you got something, let me know, or just but I'm gonna leave it open to whoever goes first. Um, is water being so such as like a big snake is the being that I want to talk about. Um, here while everyone's thinking, here in the northeast part of Oklahoma, I was born and raised in Tahlequah, and we have the Illinois River here. There's been legends and tales and stories about these snakes. Uh, the tie snake is what I was told. No, I don't want the creek name is what I in my head want to say, but it just rains. So I don't know if I want those problems or want to give anybody problems, um, but they're described. I've heard multiple different stories or how they're described. They usually have big horns. Sometimes they'll have like maybe like a bell or something or some type of metallic hanging off, hair, almost like a beard. And they can go really, really little into like a worm, or they can really get big. And a story that was told to me growing up, I hadn't really shared this a lot, but this is a medicine story. Back in the day, my grandpa had a buddy, and they were down at the grounds, and the grounds are always located near a water source. Um, and and he's down there, and he kind of moves off to the side, and he kind of goes down by the creek or river. It's by a body of water, not usually a river, but a body of water. Um, and he goes down there, and all of a sudden he looks over and he sees these old elders, medicine people, and they're down there, and they're singing a song, and he kind of recognizes it. And what I was told is it was called a four corner song. Um, and all of a sudden, as he's sitting there watching these medicine men singing this song, this big snake comes out. And he kind of described it as kind of like people say Loch Ness monster, where you kind of see that hump and then it comes up. But but that snake comes out, and it's almost like that snake is in a trance. And it's going back and forth, and its eyes begin to close, and it's just, kind of like a cobra when play a flute and it starts, swaying, and all of a sudden that snake lowers its head, and while the men begin to start singing, one of the medicine men come over and shaved, its horns, and they say they use that for a lot of their way, like the different medicines that they use for the tribe. Now I'm gonna open it up to the floor and to everybody. So if you got something, have you guys heard anything like that? Tie snake, horn snake type being.
My grandma, I don't really remember the story, but she said that there's this like dragon like snake, and it made a lot of our rivers up in the Wind River Reservation, and it's still there to this day. She says, well, she passed, but she said it's still there, and that we need to leave it alone, stay away from it, because if it came back, it would do a lot of damage. And then my sister, being young, like she was maybe about 13 years old, she was in the canal, and she said there was this like, it looked like a dragon, like a small dragon, but then it just disappeared. But other than that, I don't know any stories other than what my grandma told me and what my sister saw.
Yeah, so as far as the snake from the water goes, there's in our tribe, um, there's this serpent that stays in this lake at Fourhorn Lake. People have seen it. My wife's, what would it be, her great grandpa? He's seen it, and that's where the story got passed down from was him. and he described it as this huge, you know, kind of moved like a well. What it did was it scared some antelope away that he was hunting, and when he went to go over that hill, looking down at that lake, those antelope were running away, and he noticed that that huge snake was outside of that water, on that side hill a little, and it went back down toward that lake, and just slowly went back in and disappeared. And that lake is in my wife and them's family. My grandpa lived out there too long time ago, but today that land is surrounded by my wife's family and all them. Also in their family they have that serpent lodge. I want to say the old lady has it. The matriarch of their family still has that lodge, and one of my wife's cousins still know the songs to that serpent lodge. And those are holy things. Those are powerful things that they have. And as far as that water type snake, that's kind of the I guess the general story that I know about it. And to mention the painted lodge, that's that serpent lodge. But aside from that, another medicine story. Now, if I butcher this, I apologize, but I'm trying to reach back into my memory to pull this one out. So it goes like this. There was some Blackfeet. They went out again. They were raiding, and they end up getting in rough shape too. They end up having to flee, and so they were fleeing. They got overpowered, and they were trying to get back to their camp. But there was these two brothers, and one of them was he was shot, and as he was shot, his other brother they holed up in a cave, and his other brother was on watch, just watching for on guard while they were resting. And as he's standing there, he kind of goes into you know like this trance, because just before this, he's seen a bunch of rattlesnakes out there, and he took some of his pemmican and he was feeding them. He was offering it to them, just helping them and stuff. And all of a sudden, he's standing there and he kind of goes into like this trance. And this woman starts walking up that hill to where they're hole up at, and she says, "I seen you feeding my people." She said, "So I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna give you this medicine that you can use to help your brother." And so she teaches it to him, and teaches him the songs for it and what to do with it. And when he's singing those songs, he's got to sing it 4 times, that song. And each time it sounds like somebody's walking up to them where they're at. Then he'll sing the next song, and it sounds like they go away. Sings the third song, sounds like they come close. Sings the last song, sounds like they go away. Well, as she taught him that, those guys are just staring at him because he was like in this trance. Like, damn, is he all right? Well, like, what's wrong with him? Well, he snaps too, and he says, "I know what to do. I know how to help him." And so he starts doing that medicine that she taught him. He said, "Now cover him up with that robe." They cover him up with it, and he starts singing that song and doing whatever else she taught him. And they heard that sound like somebody's coming up close and backing away when he sing those songs. And when he was done, he said, "Now I'll take that robe off of him." He took that robe off of him, and there was just a skeleton laying there. It wasn't even his brother no more. It was just a skeleton. So he reaches in and he grabs that uh, ball round. He pulls it out of there. He says, "Now cover him back up." And he starts singing that again. Went through the whole procession again. And he took that robe off of him when he was done, and geez, he was just healed. No scars, no nothing. Like he wasn't even hit. And the last person to witness that was my wife's grandpa on her mother's side. These ones that know about that have the serpent lodge, are on her father's side. Well, this was her mother's side. The last one to witness that happen was her grandfather. And and he's the one that passed that story to us, down to the generations to us. But that comes from those snakes.
Man,
Medicine stories are some of the funnest ones to tell.
yeah, they are. I'm sorry, Donald. Go ahead. I thought I heard you.
No, that's okay. Yeah, I already told this one on your podcast, but I will tell it again.
Yeah. No. Hey. Okay. So I'm gonna preface this, everybody. This story that he told gave me goosebumps. I was literally, if you remember, Donna, I remember I had goosebumps and I was speechless
Yeah.
because this is kind of in the same realm that what we hear here in Oklahoma. So go ahead. I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, that's okay. Yeah, so my cousin told me this story, and it's about this old man. A long, long time ago, he used to live by the water around here on our reserve, and he would go down the shore and he would watch for boaters or canoers to come around, and he'd wave them in, and the ones who would come in, he would take them up to his little cabin or his house, and he would feed them, and um, and then he'd tie them up. I don't know if he like sedated them with the food or what happened, but he would tie them up and then he would drag them down by the lake, and then he'd start drumming, and he would be singing a song, and this big silver serpent snake, it come up and it come up to shore, and it would eat, it would start digesting that person that he had tied up. And then after he was done doing that, the old man would lift the scale and he would scrape it with a knife and take that as some sort of medicine. I don't know what he used it for. I didn't I didn't ask because I was that story really scares me, and I'm not sure if it's true or not, but I believe it because I can imagine it happening. So that's the one about the silver snake. And then we had three of our younger boys. They're out in a canoe, and they got tipped over by a big serpent. They were fine. They got away, but um, I'm not sure what color that one was. If it was the same silver one, but yeah, this was a few years ago. But yeah, that story about that old man. Um, it's stuck with me. I heard it 12 years ago, and I still think of it from time to time.
Yeah, man. Because they always say that you're not supposed to be talking about seeing them,
Yeah.
and I've heard that a lot. Um, I've heard that if you talk about it, then you end up, um, you know, something gonna happen to you. You get sick, or
Hmm.
and I've been told different years by different family members. I've heard 7. I've heard a year. Um, and in y'all's different, parts of where you guys are at, do you guys have anything like that where, if you talk about something or if you do something, then this is, you're going to get a bad omen or bad luck, or do y'all have anything like that, Levon, out there?
Yeah, I mean, like, a lot of natives, you can't whistle at night. You bring something around, or you don't play outside. We have all that. It's just, it's different, I guess, with every tribe. But what I've noticed in my ghost stories is that we all come from different places, but we all have something similar. I've had people from Africa, or South Africa. That's what me and Rod were talking about, right, Rod? When
Yeah, yeah.
they you have what, the Hat Man,
Hmm.
and that he's all over the world. So I mean, just like other tribes, I do get, I understand some, but like I said with the snake, I haven't heard anything like that. I know we have like it. I guess you could say it's a dragon, or I'm not too sure.
Let me ask you this too. While I guess I'm thinking about it.
Mhm.
there's so out of the stories that you've heard, just growing up, what were some? I guess, do you have a story that you didn't listen to the warnings of your elders or people older than you? Do you have any of those types of stories or a
Quite a
story like
few.
that?
Yeah, yeah. Looking out at night. Um, so my mom, she lived in the city in Denver, and I stayed with my grandma on the reservation, and we had these bunk beds, and I was pretty young. But you know how our elders tell us right away when it starts getting dark, you close those windows, and there's a reason for that, right? So I'd always question my elders. Well, why? Why? I was that curious one. Then one night I was looking out the window, missing my mom and everything, and I saw a two-headed dog, and my grandma got mad.
Mm.
She was livid. Yeah, she wasn't too happy about that. She said, "Don't you know when you see things like that, your face could twist."
Oh
But
man, yeah.
other time whistling, and I got whistles back. You know, it just yeah. We'd play in the dark, and it wasn't just me. We'd play in the dark, and we'd always end up be playing like I don't know if you've ever done this, but you're outside playing in the dark. We're all hide and seek and all this and that. You think you see someone when really it was something a whole lot different.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's the whole thing about, you know, I I have my stories about being a knucklehead and not
Mhm.
listening. You know, uh, Donna, on your side of things, are there any things similar? I know whistling, I know is a huge thing in natives. Like, you don't do that. You don't whistle at night. You don't do any of that. Is there any other things that you can kind of think of that maybe you were told growing up, and then I'll kick it to Rod after that.
Yeah, well, like the Ouija board. that
Oh
Oh,
man,
that was the big thing that we used to play around with, and we were told like not to, or you're gonna invite stuff in. You're gonna get sick. Something's gonna happen to you. So, yeah. So playing with the Ouija board, not a good idea. I haven't done a Ouija board story yet, but I'm planning on it on the podcast. Like we have a whole group of friends that I wanna bring on and get their takes on it. Like because stuff like sort of refresh in my memory. But yeah, like or asking for signs, you know, that's what we did and we got one. We got a few of them. So yeah, Ouija boards are a big thing. Whistling at night. I was told not to do that and I was outside having a smoke one night and I was whistling and I heard it coming down the road and it got louder and louder. As it was almost at my driveway, I ran inside and locked the door. So I don't, I didn't see anything. I just hear that whistle. Um, and yeah, basically, that's all I can think of right now.
if you think of anything, go. Feel free to just like I said, Levon. Same thing. If y'all you think of something, just let it rip. Rod, do you got anything like that out your way?
Yeah, but before I touch on that, I'd like to answer a question from Lisa Ray. And hi, Blueberry. um, he, that person was asking, are there stories you're not supposed to tell and why? And what types of those stories like that. Well, kind of paraphrasing the question, but so in our way, there are three types of stories. You have the kids' stories, you have the everybody stories, and then you have the stories that are exclusive for the societies or the bundle holders, the medicine people. You have three kinds, three versions of the same story, right? So, like, say we were talking about, geez, what's an example off the top of my head? Say we were talking about the story of Starface, how we got the Sundance and the 100 Willow Sweat. Say we were talking about that story. Okay, so if you were a Sundance man, you would be taught that story on, you would be given the most exclusive version of it, where you're learning songs, you're learning how to paint and in what pattern you use to paint. you're learning that, right? That's like the sacred knowledge of that story. You're learning what took place, and it's also according to these. Now, that's why, like, when people say, well, that just sounds like a fairy tale, that's just folklore. Think what you may. And the reason why you're thinking that is because you were never told that story on the highest level, I guess you could say. You were never told it like that. So you don't really get to appreciate the power of these stories. Those ones are the ones that are off limits. We don't talk about that. Or we don't say you had medicine that you were given by a spirit. It came to you in a dream and it taught you something. And you knew what to do with it. It made sense to you. So you knew you were taught something, and you started doing it. Performing the ceremony it taught you. And if you started talking about how you do that with other people, a lot of times it'll go away. You'll lose that medicine. You won't be able to use it anymore. So a lot of these things are guarded. They're only meant for that one person, or they're only meant for the societies or the bundle holders. When they're getting these things transferred to them, they'll tell others these stories. Right now, the everybody story, we'll talk about that same example. And all I can tell that story to you guys, without any repercussions whatsoever. So you just go through. Not that I know. I'm not a Sundance man. I don't know that story on the highest level. I just know the everybody version of it. And when you tell it on that one, it's just simple. Scarface, he went on a journey, and he wanted to get that scar removed from his face because he wanted to marry this girl. This girl said she was already married to Napi Natusi, and he told her that you can't marry anybody, and if somebody comes to you, you gotta send them my way. And so he had this planned. And so when Scarface approaches her, they're all getting teased. She won't marry anybody. And he's poor, got no friends, he's an orphan. And he wears the black part of the lodge covers. Most people will make clothes out of the old lodge covers of the clean part on the bottom. He always wore the black ones. He was ugly, no friends. And so they teased him, and he said, well, fine, I'm going to go. And he went and he sought out the sun, or the creator, or Napi Natusi. He goes on this journey, and each time he stops at a place, a spirit guides him to the next place. He went from this area in Montana, and he ended up all the way over onto the west coast to the big water, and he had no place else to go. And from that, we learn to sacrifice until you can't sacrifice anymore, and to reach for the better things in life. Always go big with what you're after. And so he gets there, his feet are all bleeding, and he's got nowhere left to go. And so he lays down, and at this point, he's almost dead because he fasted that whole time over there, about 3 months, and to get over there, and stopping on each mountain where a spirit told him to go. Talk to that spirit, next place, next place, next place, till he was there. So see, that's just the beginning of that story. And I can tell that all day like that because it's for the everybody. Now, if they were to talk about that one, differently, they would say, well, Scarface left, and when he went to see that old lady first, this is the song she sang, and this is how she painted him. And they would teach you that song and that paint. Well, we don't, like I said, we don't do that. We can tell this everybody version. Now, as far as talking about ghost stories and things like that, each tribe's going to have their different ways of doing it. Some people are really strict, and they say don't talk about any spirits whatsoever. Don't talk about any. Some say wait until the first snow falls, then it's okay. Then you can talk about these. Other tribes like mine, we talk about them all year round. We tell ghost stories, any kind of stories all year round. So there's going to be a variance. There's never a set in stone way. It's just dependent on the tribe you're at, and of course, if you're in that area, you abide by the local customs and courtesies. But going back to that, if you've ever done something that you weren't supposed to, yes, I took something. I was up visiting. Uh, I was really just getting away, but I decided to get away up by these graves and these cliffs, old ones. And my grandpa had showed this place to us because that's where we got the flat rocks near those. It wasn't at those graves, it was near them, kind of down the bottom. There's these flat rocks that broke off, and they all kind of like scattered down in that little coulee area. That's where we got the flat rocks to make a walking path at my grandpa's house from the cars, up into the house. And he was telling us that there are graves up there. Well, I used to hunt through there. I used to walk the top of that ridge and hunt around, peek down in those coulees. And I had gotten in an argument with my mother, and I was about, seventh grade, eighth grade, somewhere in there. And so I was pouting. And I went up to sit on those hills up there and pout and feel bad for myself. And but I was sitting up there, I was just looking at that whole valley and feeling sorry for myself. And finally, I walked out of there, but I seen this really shiny thing on the ground. Not shiny, it was like green shiny. It was like this little rock or a button or something. I really liked it, but it was away from those graves. I picked it up and I took it with me. I didn't tell anybody. Well, when I get home that night, I was sleeping by my grandpa in his bed with my little brother. Us three slept on his big bed. And my mom and dad and them were sleeping in the living room. And we were just staying there for, I think, Thanksgiving. And we were going to go back to town after that. Well, anyways, that night, those cupboards, they just kept opening, closing, dishes flying out, chairs moving, just
Yeah.
a lot of ruckus going on in there that night. And as soon as I slept through all of it. Since I get up, my mom and my dad and them, we're all trying to figure it out. Grandpa, all of them, and they said, "Where'd you go yesterday?" I said, "I was up by those graves. I was sitting up there." And I says, "Well, what'd you do up there?" So I was just sitting up there, prayed a little bit, just sitting there. Didn't want to tell him I was feeling bad for myself. And I was just sitting there. "Did you take anything from up there?" And I said, "No." "Yeah, I did." And still wearing the same pants from that previous day. I pulled it out and I showed him. "You bring that back up there right now." They all start telling me. "And when you leave from there, you spit and you tell them not to follow you home." And so that's what I did. I went back up there, and my grandpa was really adamant that I put it right back where I found it. Just I was worried because I couldn't find that exact spot. I went to the area and I couldn't find. I was looking for that little indention and I couldn't find it. So I just put it where I thought it was the closest area. And then I spit and said, "Don't follow me now. Don't follow me home." And I left, and we stayed there another night, and it never happened again after that. But I knew better not to take things. And if you do take things, you smudge them off before you bring them in your house. But if you're really worried about it, you'll smudge them and then you leave them outside your house for 4 days. If it doesn't disappear, then it's okay to bring it into your house. But that's one I broke.
Mhm.
Yeah. The one thing is so when you do things like that, I know a country music star. His name was Hardy. I don't know if you guys know who that is. He's out of Tennessee or Nashville. Basically, he was arrowhead hunting, and basically his whole house started like doing that. What you're talking about, things started moving around. It's like there was people in the home, and he basically, I think he ended up getting rid of a bunch of stuff. But they said his house was haunted, like bad haunted. And just kind of segueing perfectly with that example, talking about ghost stories or haunted homes or haunted hospitals or just haunting or ghost in general. Um, I'm gonna kick it over to Levon real quick. Um, Growing up, you know, did you have a haunted house, or was there someone? My wife actually commented this because she was wanting to hear this story. That I was told that you had. That's pretty crazy about a clown.
Oh yeah. Um, well, when I was younger, on our reservation, some really bad things started happening. Kids were committing suicide, and a lot were my friends. We were all teenagers. They were getting into some crazy stuff, is what I know. Like, yeah, devil worshiping and stuff like that. And I didn't do it because my grandma was Catholic and she was my everything. So even like the Ouija board, what Don was talking about, I just wouldn't play it because of my grandma. But the kids I hung around with did it, and I was around, and every weekend I'd hear of a new one, committing suicide, and every time they found them, they would be trying to pull the ropes off of their necks, like they'd have gorges into their necks trying to scratch that rope off. So what happened was this police officer up there, he was on duty, and he pulled over this really fancy black car. I'm not too sure. Some say it's a hearse, and some say it's just really fancy. Not too sure, like a limo, like an old limo or something. So the cop pulled him over, and he's talking to the driver, and he's asking the driver, "What are you doing? And why are you here?" And the driver says, "We're driving around looking for some people that we need to pick up." And he says, "Okay, well, who are these in the back?" He said, "I need names." So the driver gave him names. And so he called up to dispatch, how they do. Called up to dispatch, and the dispatcher says, "Okay, well, give me the names." So and on the reservation we have BIA cops that come from all over, so he wasn't from where I'm from. So he started running off the names, and then the dispatcher turned around and told him, "You know what? Get the hell out of there. Get out of there." And the cop's like, "Why? What's going on?" At the same time, this limo driver or whatever starts turning into a clown. And he's laughing like a really evil, wicked laugh, growling. And the dispatch told him, "All those boys that you're talking about are there?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Those boys are deceased. Those are the boys that committed suicide."
Oh my
And
gosh.
they're sitting there staring, and like they're staring like just into space, like, they have no, I guess you would say, soul in them. They're just there. And he's like, he's going crazy. And the reason why I know this is true too is because the lady who came in, she came to the reservation. She was from Lander, a town off from the reservation. She's a white lady. And she came in and she says, "I know that whole story because when we found him, he was on the ground, freaking out, like crying. He was, really freaking out. And he's like, they're right there. I'm talking to them." And everyone kept telling him there's nobody there. He's like, "They're right here." And so, you hear about the clown, and it's not just our reservation, it's other reservations that have this clown. But one night, me and my mom came home from the casino. It was like maybe 3 o'clock in the morning. And where I live, it's like I'd probably say like a horseshoe. It was a village shaped like a horseshoe. And in the middle of the village, like you could just point, when you pull into the driveway, right in the middle of the village, there's this old rickety playground. It was, just tore down, rickety. And we pull in at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I hear carnival music, and I'm all like, "What the hell's going on?" But my lights are, the lights that stay on for a minute, the safety lights. So when you go inside, they shut off. And I'm looking straight out, and it's faced right towards this playground. And there's a clown there doing flips, back and forth, laughing and giggling and just weird. And I'm standing there like, am I really seeing that? And my mom's like trying to pull me inside. She's like, "Get the hell inside." I'm like, "No, it's really happening." And this thing is just flipping around, and you could hear the music getting louder and louder and louder. And so I finally went in, but it was just something that I didn't believe, because you hear stories about it, but you don't believe it, you know. And yeah, there's a clown there, and it helps people commit suicide.
Man.
Hmm.
Hey, they wasn't lying about that story. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and it's not there's I got a story on my page, and I think they're from South Dakota. They have stories about the clown. Yeah.
What do you think that is? Do you think that's like a
It,
spirit that's masking itself to make people comfortable?
I don't think it's to make them come. I don't, because these are teens that were. I mean, I understand if it was little kids, a clown was what we saw at the circus and stuff like that, right? But this clown, when I seen it, it was black and white, and it just looked nothing but friendly. It looked nothing like you didn't want to, like, your hair stood up all over when you saw this thing. Yeah.
Wow. Dono or Rod, y'all got any comments on that story, man? Man,
I'm just glad that we don't have. I've never seen a clown out here, so
Mm.
that's.
I know,
I
but I know you got some things though, Dono. I know you have. Are you? I guess before Rod answers that, uh, Dono, are you gonna tonight? Are you finally gonna tell your story, the one that you left me on the cliffhanger about what you saw following you home that one night?
Was it the long walk home? My first.
Yes.
That one I can tell you.
Okay. Tell that here in a minute. I want to hear what Rod's comments on that on Levon's story because that if Rod's heard anything similar or something like that.
well, no, not like the clown story. I don't know any clown stories from my res, but when I listened to that story, I think that spirit. Well, obviously, it's preying on people. It's preying on the vulnerable, the weak, the mentally depressed. Who knows what else? But it's feeding off of them in some way. And so I think that spirit is just similar to the others that do similar things like alcohol spirit. They take and take until there's nothing left to take. They've got everything from you, including your life. And to make itself look like a clown isn't to invoke safety, it's to invoke a enormous fear response from you so they can feed off of that. That's what I think about when I think about that story she tells.
Yeah, because I mean, you know, all three of you guys have told a story and have told me a story specifically that has left me, you know, unsure of what I just heard. And to me, it doing flips on the playground, man. It honestly reminds me of it, like the movie It. And I'm definitely afraid of clowns because of that movie. And I couldn't even imagine, seeing that doing flips. Like did it look over at you, Levon, or anything? Does it
Yeah, yeah, it was during like I said, I got stuck. Like I couldn't move, but the same clown, my niece has seen it in that village and my mom saw it. It would, like, my mom, I mean, she would go outside and she would see it flipping on the neighbor's trampoline.
oh my
But my
god.
niece, yeah, my niece saw it, but it wasn't at the village. It was further up in Fort Washakie, which was maybe about 7, 8 miles from where we live. And they were driving. They almost got into a wreck, and it was just standing there waving at them. Yeah.
I told you
Yeah, here,
guys, everybody in the chat, I told y'all this is a very special or a very special panel and episode. I'm sorry, Rod. Go ahead. What you're gonna say?
the one story I heard, this is not my story. It comes from a lady named Desiree. She's on TikTok and she'll tell spooky stories every now and again. And this I want to say is comes from her cousin, but she told it one night on TikTok, and it's a clown story. And as it goes, there's these two housing areas or subdivisions, I guess you could say, and in between them is a like a sidewalk where people run, walk dogs, whatever. But that part of the the trail or the pathway that they take to go on these walks and everything, there was a guy running, and he just leaves the light from the one subdivision, and there's like a little, I guess there's shrubbery or trees along one side of that trail, and he's running along that, and he hears something in that brush, and he's thinking, oh geez, it might be a bear, it might be a something. So he was kind of worried. He kind of stopped and he was listening, and he didn't have any dogs with him or anything, so he's listening and you don't hear it anymore, so he just keeps running. And as he gets all the way through there, and just about to the light of the next little housing area, he hears it in that brush again. Like it was there again, that same sound he heard again. And so he kind of turns around and is looking at it, and what comes out of there is a clown, and it's doing a handstand, and it's walking on its hands, but it's looking up at him, like looking right in his eyes. It's got its head, cocked up all funny, looking at him, and he freaks out. He just freaks out and in shock, standing there, same thing like Laban was saying, like almost couldn't move, and it starts running, but on its hands, running at him really fast, and he just turns around. He's able to get his feet under him, and he just bolts right to where he was going to his house. But that story kind of freaks me out when I put the mental image of it, and I said, "What?" Or she was describing how it looked too. She was saying, on the pack of cards, that Joker with that funny hat, that's how he
Mhm.
looked.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the clown I saw, it was like a clown that you would see at a circus, but I'm and I'm still trying to picture this, but it had like sharp teeth, like the scary ones you see on Halloween, like the costumes.
yeah,
Like
that's
the
definitely a
teeth.
really bad spirit.
Yeah, it almost like it, and after seeing it, I don't I don't like clowns. I don't.
Did you have bad luck, or did you? Is there any? Was there any after effects of it? You seeing it?
Well, I mean, yeah, we like with my niece, they did, like I said, almost got into a car wreck. The car was, pretty bad off. They weren't hurt, thank God. And then after I saw it, it's just like I start getting just like all around bad luck, I guess you could say. Yeah, it's nothing good. It's nothing good at all. There's nothing good about that clown. Like I said, a lot of people who have claimed to see it also have ended up taking their lives.
Mm. Wow. Yeah. I mean, wow. Yeah. That's I've never heard that, and that's something that I may have to look into that because my first thought would be it's a mimic spirit, to
Mhm.
draw you in. But what it sounds like, it's just bad. It's not even trying to bring you in. It's just like, hey, I am what I am, and this is what's going to
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah, it just shows up. I mean, it ain't like you have a choice. It just, like Rod said, it's a bad evil spirit. When you see that thing, you see it. And like I said, I was stuck. My mom was the one yanking me in the house. But the dogs hid. They would not bark nothing. They hid. Like it just was quiet around the village.
Man,
Quite quite enough you could hear the music playing.
man, that's crazy too. Carnival music. Oh no, I'm out. I'm gone.
Yeah, no,
Me too.
yikes.
Mhm.
But so Dono, I know I gave a little a teaser to your long walk home.
Yep.
Um, I think before you said you didn't quite finish it. I think this is almost a year, or almost a year. Actually, when you came on our podcast, it was a year and a half ago in 2023.
Yes.
Could you tell the audience that story? Because Levon and Rod may have a similar type story to yours, or something that is close.
Yeah. So I think it was back in 2010, I believe. I was at my friend's, and we were drinking a couple beer or whatever, and it was like 2:30 in the morning, and I was leaving our house, and when I left, I said, uh, "I hope the devil doesn't walk me home," and we started laughing, which was stupid now that I think about it, and so I'm walking down her driveway. I get to a stop sign, and I turn right, and then in the middle of like the road. There's like a crossroad, and I always check like the directions. Like I check behind me, to the left, to the right, and then I'm gonna go straight. There's nothing there. There's nobody around. So I start walking, and I get to the middle, like midway through my street on the way home, and I'm craving a cigarette, and I don't have any. So I go to my friend's house, and I go around back of the house, and I tap on the window to see if they're there, and they're not. So I turn the corner to go back to my street, and I see this tall man, and he's 8, 9 foot. I don't know how tall, and he has a big staff with him, and his strides are huge. And he's walking, and it's dark. It's probably like 20 to 3, quarter to 3 now in the morning, and he's walking, and I walk out. I'm sorry, I get shaky telling the story. I don't I don't like it because like it's like reliving it. But anyways, I get to the road, and he's on the other side on the sidewalk, and I'm walking, trying not to make any noise, and um, I can see him in the street light, and he's going short, tall, fat, skinny, short, tall, like he keeps morphing, and it's his silhouette. And then I keep walking, and I don't know why I didn't like run at that point, but I'm walking, and then he stops mid stride, and he just turns his head, and like my blood went right to my feet, and something told me, or I was telling myself, don't run. He'll chase you. Like he's gonna get you if you run. So I walk up, and I come beside him. He's on the other side of the road. I'm on the other sidewalk, and he's looking at me, and I can't see his face. And he says, "Who are you?" And I say, "Donovan." He said, "Where are you coming from?" And I said, "My friends." And he said, well, like, "Where are they?" And I said, "I think they're spearing." So that's when you're catching fish. I said, "I think they're spearing." And we're walking, and I can feel him staring at me. I don't look at him, but I can, out of the peripheral, I can see his head is staring at me while he's walking, like, um, and he's walking the same pace as I am. And we get to near to my house, and the street light is out. Of all things, it's totally pitch black, and I'm so scared, and I'm walking, and I get to my driveway, and then there's a little road that goes to the right, and it goes um, around the village, anyways. And he says, "I'll see you later," and I say, "Okay," and I bolt, and I run down my long driveway. I get in, I lock the door, and yeah, that was my first encounter with this thing. I don't want to call it a him or a her. I don't think it's an entity of some sort. But yeah, I have another encounter with him that I'm gonna put on my podcast at some point.
Dang, how it was basically glitching. That's creepy.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And my little heart's just going right now. Whew. Okay.
Let me piggyback off of that. So
Yes.
that reminds me of a story. My niece, she really I don't know how to say this because she sees a lot of spirits. A lot of spirits come to her for whatever reason, and and a lot of times they're these bad ones. And it's almost like she's got no way of shutting it off. You can see them, and it must be some sort of personal hell to go through some of the stuff that happens to her. Well, one night she's driving home in Browning on the Blackfeet Res, and her mom tells her, don't stay out late. Don't be driving around late. There's a lot of crazy people out, drunk drivers, this, that, and the other." And I won't. And it's about 11 o'clock, and she's worried that her mom's going to get mad at her because she stayed wherever she was visiting for a little longer than she should have. And she's driving home. She's down by this the light office, so, electricity. and she's driving down by that place, kind of downtown. That would be, I guess, downtown Browning, and she sees this person, this street person, um, winos, drunks, whatever you want to call them. We call them street people, and she's seen one of these street people walking, and she says, "Oh, he would just stagger, really stagger fast one way. I thought he was gonna fall, but he would never fall. He'd just stand back up, and he would go the other way and stagger like he was gonna fall, but he'd never fall down, but he was really staggering." She said, "I'm driving and I kind of slow down because I'm watching him and thinking, what the hell?" And she said, all of a sudden he starts glitching, like
Mm.
like uh like a when you're getting bad reception, like say on a TV, and it starts glitching out. She said he'd be there, not be there, like be stretched out tall, not be tall, just glitching. And that really scared her, and she's trying to drive by, and she starts kind of like speeding, and he's staggering right beside the car, just and he couldn't be going that. He's going like 25, and that's fast for somebody, you know, trying to follow you, and he's just staggering right beside her car, keeping up with her, and then she kind of like slows down a little bit because she's getting worried she's going too fast, and he goes behind her car and he starts tapping on that brake light back there, just tapping on it, tapping on it. She gets scared and she just, you know, 35 down that road up by housing, trying to get back up to her house. And remind me to talk about her house. But anyways, as she's driving up that road to get back to her mom, um, that thing is still tapping on her light, like almost the whole way until she got to her house, and then she just didn't see it anymore. But that thing has been seen before downtown, and you know, hangs around those street people. It's one of those alcohol spirits. But again, the image that puts in my mind of it just glitching, that's really creepy. Oh, so her house, I, I gotta say this. They built veteran homes out on the other side of this graveyard. They're the newest subdivision that's built there, and right off of that hill, going down toward those railroad tracks, is where they always see that Goatman, and it's crazy to think that that's where they live, and that they've built a subdivision near there because this thing is really bad. This Goatman, like I need to kind of describe it, and so it's got a couple different forms. It can appear as a giant goat, as if say it's laying on its belly in your living room. Its horns would be scraping the ceiling. It looks like a half man and a half goat, about 7 feet tall. Its lower half is the rear half of a goat, and its biped, and its upper half is the shape of a human man, but its eyes are on the sides of its head. Like
Mm.
a cow or something, or it's on the side like horses or something like that. And the other shape it takes is of a man wearing a trench coat with a cowboy hat. Really, they say he's really a good-looking cowboy, and is well-spoken and is generous. He buys people drinks, shares alcohol with you, but the bottle of alcohol he shares with you never disappears. You have a whole crowd just roundhousing that bottle, and it'll never dip below full. It'll always be full. And so right behind that subdivision is a tunnel. And my friend that's a cop, he chased it there with three other policemen, chased it up to that tunnel is where they stopped. And they were wondering why the hell they're even chasing it. But as they get off, they got their lights shining on that place and everything, dash cams are on, and it shined at that tunnel. They get off and they walk like up to the mouth of that tunnel, and they look in there, and it's kind of like crouched way in the back, and it's kind of motioning them, like waving them to come in. And cops see a lot of crazy things, especially res cops, and you got to keep a sense of humor even in times like that, or you'll go nuts. And so they do. They start teasing each other. Well, go in there. Like, heck with you, I ain't going in there. You go in there. They're like, why are we even here? Like, why are we even chasing this thing? Let's just go. And they just leave. And the original call was that a lady wanted the horses removed from her porch. She thought there were horses on her porch because she could hear the hoofs on her porch.
Ah,
And she didn't know what it was. She just heard it, so that's why she called the cops. And it was a quiet night, and three of them responded. And when my friend's getting up to the house, going by the middle school, somewhere's around in there, he hears over the radio, "Holy shit, it's the Goatman!" And that scared my friend. And we served in. When I left the Marine Corps, I went to the Army, and by some miracle, my friend ended up in the same platoon with me. Like, we go way back, even to the boarding school days. And he said, "Man, my heart just sank. I was so scared. Ears start ringing. I just turned on my lights and start flying up there. By the time I get up there, I see it running out onto that dirt road away from that house, down into that ditch. And the guy that responded first was in a Bronco, so he followed it down on that four-wheeler trail at the bottom of the coulee. My friend hugged the right side on top of the coulee, and the last officer to respond went on the far side and on top of the coulee. So they're all behind it, three of them on both ridges, and then one down the center, and they're running it up to that tunnel. And to think that they have a house. My poor niece has a house. I mean, and I've been there. It's like almost the closest house to that place. There's so much activity out there. I feel so bad for this poor girl because she sees these things and she can't turn it off. But yeah, I could go on and on with Goatman stories, but I don't want to be monologuing too long. We got a round table here, so that's all I'll say for now.
uh, I was waiting. I was waiting on Dono. He
Oh,
unmuted, so I was waiting on him.
sorry. Yeah, we have like a hoofed man that has a black trench coat and a hat and hooves. And one of the first stories I've heard is in our old church there was a funeral, and that man with the black hat and the trench coat come in, and he walked up to the casket, and then he just turned around and walked out. And I don't know what he did like at the casket, but when the people looked down at his feet, there were hooves. And even at our old dances, they used to have dances at our community hall, and that hoofed man would come there and drink with those people. And um, yeah, he's there's quite a few stories of that guy.
Yeah, I haven't really heard much. I told my story, um, and you guys can go back about the little boy that saw a man down by at Merle Home Park at the creek. Um, that story's in my early years episode. If you guys want to go check that out, but Miss Levon, have you heard anything Goatman related out that way?
A few, yeah. Actually, here in Colorado too, and it made national, like it made news here, headline news. The goat man, they called him the devil. He was at the Regis motel here downtown Denver, dancing with a girl, touched her. She had boils all over her. She was in a trance, and then she somehow broke away, went to the bathroom. When she looked at her body, wherever he touched her, there was boils all over her body. But see, when he came in, he was a good-looking man. He was buying drinks up, everything, right? And so while she's in there, she's like crying, telling people, "Look at me." And he got on the mechanical bull. When he went up, his boot flew off and there was a hoof there. And all the lights turned off and people were screaming because they saw the hoof. And they started screaming. The lights came back on. He was gone. But while he was leaving, you could hear a wicked laugh.
Oh
And
man.
so he just disappeared into nothing. But it made news here in Colorado. But I do hear of him a lot in Wyoming. I have a story that pertains to him, and you know, I don't know if I'm ready to tell the story yet, but eventually I will.
Yeah.
But
We're gonna have to hear one of these days. So
yeah,
let me ask.
it's like Don said. You know, he was scared. This is one of those stories that really bother me. So yeah,
And I want to open this up to the panel, or I guess the round table, I guess we can call it. What do you guys think the Goatman is? Do you think it's an entity, or like a supernatural, evil spirit type, demonic, if you want to label it that, or do you think it's an actual physical type of creature being? Just kind of open it up to anybody.
Well,
I
like
think
with ours. Oh, go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
Alrighty, sorry. Um, with ours, and okay, so in Browning, when people talk about the goat man, there's a lot of stories of this thing there, right? There's a lot. And I just know a few. There's so many more out there that I don't know of, and I'm sure of that because every now and again somebody will come up and be like, "Hey, I got a story for you, man," and start talking about the goat man, and it, it it's just blows my mind because I've never seen it. Thank goodness I've never seen it, but all these people have stories of it. And hearing all of these stories and talking to some of my friends, one of my friends is actually, yeah, we grew up together. We're like brothers, but he's actually like my elder is kind of how I look at him because he's been around Sundances, all that since he's really small. He can run one from the beginning to the very end. He knows that much. He's been around it that long. And so a lot of times we have conversations and we'll talk for hours sometimes. And we start talking about this and he said, there ain't any stories of it in our old stories. It's not mentioned. And he said, I suspect that it's one of those things where if people think about it long enough and there's enough people, it can manifest itself into being. And so we thought about that for a while and we talked about that for a while. And then talking to other people, other people that were, heard from their elders, they said that this thing first come around when the whiskey traders came. That's when it first came here to our res. And also that we would never get rid of it until there's no more people consuming alcohol in our tribe or on our res. It'll always be there if alcohol is there. And I wonder about that. I wonder. And it makes me think that this is actually an alcohol spirit. Again, one of those spirits that take, and feed off your fear and, try to get you scared, try to get you depressed, try to cause as much angst as they can to feed. That's what I think it is an alcohol spirit in general.
I tend to agree with you. That's what I think. It's just something that I guess manifested, from all like when we drink, when we do drugs, when we do all that, we bring things around, and I don't know that a lot of stories that I hear about him, there's always alcohol or drugs in that story too.
hmm Like I got another Goatman story. So this one goes like this. Here was a bar. It used to be called a War Bonnet, and it was just on the south side of town, southeast side of town as you come in to Browning on Highway 89. It was right there, and This man comes in, same thing, and the bar is bumping that night, and he comes in, good-looking gentleman, cowboy, buying everybody drinks and visiting with everybody, things like that, dancing with the women and things, and he ends up walking out of that bar, and there's a group of people out there that are standing out there smoking cigarettes and stuff, and there's an old truck that guy walks to, and there's a bit of snow on the ground. It ain't really snowing a lot. There's maybe an inch or so, and they're just standing out there. And he walks to his truck, and he's getting ready to go, and he stops, and he opened his door, and he looked at that group of guys standing there, and he says, "Hey, you guys want a drink?" And they all recognized him from inside, and like, "Oh yeah, yeah," and they're being friendly with him. And he goes over, he pulls a bottle out of his truck, and he goes over and he says, "Where you guys go?" And starts letting them, roundhouse it right there. And they're just passing it around and around, and that guy starts laughing. He's just laughing, and the guy closest to him, like, "Hey man, like, it's so funny. Like, why are you laughing like that?" Because it started getting creepy. It started getting like, "Oh, this guy's weird, man. What the hell?" Because he's just laughing, and he said, "Oh, I just like it when it's like this." And I said, "What do you mean?" "When you guys get drunk, I really like it." Like, "Oh, you're weird, man." That's what they're thinking, because they're all looking at each other and looking at him. And then one of the guys says, "Hey, look at that bottle." They looked at that bottle; it was still full. Like, and that guy grabbed that. He had that bottle. He just handed it right back to him. "Here, man. Like, we don't want no more from you." Like, I kind of know, man. That guy said, "Well, come on, come with me. We'll go for a ride, huh? We'll go cruise around." This guy's like, "Nah, man, we're going back inside, eh?" And they just leave, and they go back in. And that guy had headed out. Well, when they go back into the bar, they're they're talking about that. Like, "What the hell was that? Like, did you guys see that bottle?" Like, "Yeah, man." I was taking big old drinks too, because, well, it was free, and that's how they're kind of discussing this. And like, "Hey, should we go out and see if he left?" Like, "Come on." And they go out to see if he left or not, and sure enough, he did. But when they're looking in the snow, it gets split hoof prints. It wasn't boots.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Mhm. And that's what other tribes will call him, the hoof man too. And we call him the goat man, because there are times too where people have just seen his tail. He has a tail that sticks out from under that trench coat too, and they'll see
Mm-hmm.
that. Yeah, but and not see the hoofs, but they'll see that tail. And there was one story that my wife's cousin wanted me to tell tonight, because I told him I'd be telling stories like this. And so this one goes like this. Their great uncle, it's their grandma's brother. He was going to town from same highway 89. There's this big hill before you get to town called Spring Hill. When you're on top of that, you can see all the lights of town at night. It's a really good view to the town. Well, over that hill, there's like this other little hill before it kind of drops to this flatter area that goes into town. And read about on that second hill, um, his car broke down, and he was with his other cousin, and they're trying to get it started, everything like that. Then this fancy car comes over the hill, slows down, and there's a guy sitting in there, cowboy looking guy, and he says, "Hey, what's going on?" I'm like, "Oh, we just car broke down. We can't get it to go anymore. I know what's wrong with it." He said, "Well, you guys need a ride?" I said, "Yeah, why don't you bring us in? We'll get this, that, and the other, and see if that fixes it." And he says, "All right, well, yeah, come on, jump in." So him and his cousin go, and they jump in, and it's like a big long bench in front. So there's three of them sitting there, and there's a back seat, but they just all jumped in front with him. And here he said, "You guys want a cigarette?" Like, yeah, and they start smoking their cigarettes. He says, "I want a drink. You guys want a drink? I got a bottle, but it's under my seat. You're gonna have to reach back." And their uncle says, "Well, yeah, heck yeah, we'll take that bottle." And he reaches back there and is reaching around for that bottle, and perhaps he feels what he thought was that bottle and he pulls it. That man starts screaming, ah! Here, what he did is he grabbed his tail and pulled it. And their uncle is like, looking at him, and he says, "Hey, stop right here. Just stop right here, man. They didn't even get far. Stop right here. We don't want to ride from you. Like, I know what you are. I know what you are, and we don't want to go with you. Oh, come on, it'll be all right. There's nothing wrong. Just grab that bottle." It's like, no, stop, man. Like, stop. I know what you are. I know who you are. I'm not going nowhere with you. He reluctantly stops and lets them out. And they go back to their car, and that's kind of the end of the story. But that that was when they were young, so what, 60s, 50s,
Mm.
somewhere in there. Yeah.
He's been around for a while. Sound like.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Well, my grandma, they were riding wagons when she told her story of the goat man. It was back
Dang.
that
Dang.
far. Yeah, they were still riding wagons, and there was a bar, but it was off the reservation. And they said that this good-looking guy goes in there, starts dancing with everybody, the women, and they're all falling in love with him. He's buying drinks, he's the life of the party. And then the same thing happens. Like they look down, they see hooves, they see a tail, and everyone was freaked out after that. They just kind of all left. They were done.
Mm.
Yeah, these two different Rezes, and these stories are similar, almost spot on the same.
Hmm.
Well, in the ghost stories page, there's a lot of those stories that's really the same, and it's from all over, even Canada. You have them from. I think one of the stories was from. Oh, what is it? From Australia that they told, and it was similar to these stories that we're telling.
Wow.
Jeez.
Yeah.
How about you, Donna? You've heard any stories like that up that way?
Yeah, there's um like the one thing I've learned from your podcast, Rod, is the alcohol spirit, and I think that's what our hoofed man or goat man is. And I think maybe the reason that we can't see his tail is because he's always in a trench coat. But there was this man, and he was driving, and there was no street lights. He was driving around. We call it Dead Man's Curve around here. It's a really sharp curve. He was driving around that, and seen a hitchhiker, and he picked him up, and he got in, and he asked for a smoke, so the driver lit it, and he dropped it, and he went to pick it up, and it was by that man's feet, and he saw the hooves, and he told him to get the get the f out of my truck. Yeah, so there's quite a few of the goat man stories around here. It almost sounds like DW a little bit, like how good looking that he is, and um, that he's always at. Well, I don't know if DW's always at parties. We don't have DW stories here, but yeah, we definitely have the hoofed man that comes around with alcohol. He had went to a party, and he had this black liquid, and it was in a bottle, and he gave it to these people that were drinking, and some of them didn't drink it, and some of them did, and the ones that did, they died quite young.
Mm.
Yeah.
You're speaking about DW, and um, for those that don't know what DW is, does everyone on the panel know what DW means when he says that?
No.
So, dear woman.
Okay. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I just
Yeah.
wanted to clarify. So, I'll tell y'all two stories that I've, or three, I guess, three stories, and they're fairly quick. One, um, so I was, it was myself, Chris Hill, and Russell Sun Eagle. We were down in Osage country out in Hominy, and we had toke signals with us too as well. They were taking pictures and just talking, telling stories, and we had an event out there, and I guess some of the elders said that there was a real pretty Indian girl sitting kind of in the middle of the crowd, and I won't say all the elders, but I'll just say a few guys, maybe a couple uncles, was saying, oh, there's a real pretty Indian girl, but her feet were covered, and so that's kind of one of the tell signs from what I've heard is that her dress is just long enough to where you can't see her feet, um, and she only appears to those, or she can only they can only see if she appears to you. And there were so many pictures taken of that night, like we all looked through them, and people was asking, "Oh, is it her?" No, 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 and no one saw them except for a few people. Saw her except for a few people. Um, given they always say that she's trying to make sure you ain't living right. If you ain't living right, she appears to you. The Reservation Dogs series. If you guys haven't seen that, she appears in that show. She kind of is a helper for Bear in that show. But another story that was told to me from a Comanche woman. I heard this story. I was down in Porham at a powwow. And we were doing interviews and just talking to older natives, just trying to get stories from them. And she was her daughter, I believe, had some dealings with Bacone, and that was kind of the connection because my grandpa was the head softball coach at Bacone College, Indian College, um, in Muskogee, and so we just talking about that, and she goes, "Yeah, I got a story for y'all." One night they're making their way, up on top of this hill or ridge or it might have been mountain. It was some type of hill type, and so they're all up there and they're out there having a good time, and they're dancing around having a good time. And all of a sudden, they stopped dancing, and then all of a sudden behind them, they could hear click, 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 like it was, deer hooves hitting the pavement.
Mm.
And they looked, there was nobody there. And, I asked her, I said, well, what do you think that was? She goes, "That's Deer Woman. She was around. She might have been in our group. Maybe we didn't see her, but someone else, somebody saw her, but, I've heard people talk about down at the powwow grounds, they see her. You know, they always call they always call it Snag City powwow time. They
Yeah.
no, to each your own, I guess. If that's what if that's your or you're lurking. Maybe she might be looking for you. I don't know, but I had a relative tell us back, and this story was told a long time ago. But essentially, there was uh, a young lady that people were seeing, certain men were seeing, and they couldn't quite figure out who she was. And all of a sudden, you know, at the end of the night, they heard it looked like it sound like deer hooves hitting top of cars, like she was running on top of cars trying to get away. And but have you guys had anything about Deer Woman in y'all's part?
Mhm. Not mine. I mean, I hear about her. I hear stories, and especially on there's a story on my page. These women picked up this lady. She was hitchhiking, and she was in the back seat, and they kept telling her, where do you need to go? We'll take you there because it's cold out. And she's like, okay. And then so, she's real quiet, but she's real pretty. Like she's just like they said, beautiful. And finally, in the middle of nowhere, she's like, pull over right here. This is where I need to go. And they're like, there's nothing around for miles and miles. And she's like, no, this is where I need to go. Pull over. So they open the door. She jumps out and she turns into a deer and hops the fence and she's gone.
You know what? That
Yeah.
story that you just told reminded me of a story that was told to me, and I cannot remember who told me this story, but this is a relative. There was a story floating around for a little bit, and if I have a family member listening, if correct me if I get anything details wrong, but there were some guys, riding around. I think my grandpa told me this story, but there was a couple guys back in his younger years, or when he's younger, was riding around, and they saw this girl on the side of the road, or they picked this girl up, and where are you going? She, oh, I'm just headed out this way, and this, going out this, out here, and so they're headed out, and they get to a certain point in the road, and also one of them guys in the back starts screaming. He's hollering. He just is. He's pull over, pull over, pull over, hurry, pull over. And the driver's like, and the guy in the front starts and looks back, and he's like, oh my, pull over. They're please pull over. So the driver pulls over, and he looks at that rearview mirror, and she's a wolf sitting back there.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's back there, and she's a wolf. So them guys took off. Boy, they got out of there. And they said they could hear. I believe the story went. They could hear her kind of laughing a little bit, like how hyenas kind of cackle like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was kind of cackling at them, and so they took off. And the next day, they come back, and there's nobody in the car. The car's exactly as it was, but yeah, they said she transformed, and I know SWs, and I'm not gonna say the word for Rod, because I know he don't like saying the full word.
Mhm.
And but shapeshifters here in Oklahoma, you know, they're still around. There's still people out there that shift, and they take shape of different things. And I had a relative of mine. He was going to Haskell Indian School, and out in Kansas, Lawrence, Kansas. He was
Mhm.
telling me, or he was my grandpa was telling me the story of our cousin. Or dang, I was about to say his name right there. I ain't gonna say his name though. But Grandpa was telling me, he's like, yeah, your cousin, went to stay with, some, uh, this girl he met at Haskell. And one night he's all, they're out there, and they're all having a good time. And he's like, I'm gonna head to bed, and I'm getting real sleepy. And so he heads to bed, and all of a sudden something told him to wake up. He fell asleep, woke up, and he saw kind of a glimmer of a fire. And all of a sudden he looked out the window, and then there was basically these wolves dancing around this fire
Mm.
out that way. He laid down, went back to sleep, and then first thing he did, he's like, I gotta go, but shapeshifters are all over the place. Another story, I'm being very long winded, but another story, if any after, I guess after this story, if y'all got anything kind of, something like that. But you know, my aunt, this is one of her stories. Growing up, there always used to be this dog used to come around when she was growing up, and they live in the middle of nowhere. You follow Oklahoma. There's basically just a kind of an old country road, and you take a right, and you're going down this long driveway, and that's where they live. They're all on the porch, and all of a sudden this dog comes up, real friendly dog, real happy to see him. Getting a lot of loves and a lot of pets. And, that dog had come up a few times, playing with those little kids. And one day, grandma came out, and all of a sudden she goes, get on out of here. What are you doing up here? Shooing the dog off, trying to get him out of here. And when she did that, that dog kind of smiled, and he had a gold tooth. And, they told him to get on out of here. What are you doing? But those things were real prevalent back in those days. But I mean, I don't hear much about it now. Is sort of say. But have y'all? I'm gonna open it up to y'all again. Wherever whatever comes. But have y'all heard anything like that?
Yeah, you were talking about snagging. I met a guy on the reservation, and he was from out of town, Utah,
Don't tell on
and
yourself. Don't tell on yourself. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah, we started seeing each other for a minute, and I he was weird. Like he just at weird times of like he would just I don't even know how to explain it. Like he'd be like, I have to go do something, and it was like okay, whatever. Anyway, I broke up with him, and my uncle was staying with us because he kind of got sick. So I gave him my room, and he started screaming that morning, the morning that because I broke up with the guy the night before, and he starts screaming, and I go in there, and I'm like, well, maybe he's real sick or something. And there's these paw prints, like cougar prints, bloody, walking up my wall,
Oh man.
walking up the wall,
My goodness.
and yeah, and he called me because I guess he was leaving town. But he called me. He said, "Do you like the gift I left you?"
Mm.
Oh, Levon.
Oh,
Oh
Yeah.
man.
After
Yikes.
that, I had to go do some things to get taken care of. But yeah, after that, I didn't know what to say. That gave me the creeps when you were talking about that because that's what happened. And other than that, that's the only story I have about the shapeshifters. But that was good enough. I mean, I'm good with just
Yeah,
that
you're good
story.
on that one. I see why. Ah,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, that
My
that
mom, everyone, they still to this day they freak out because they're walking up the wall and they're bloody like it was a big paw print.
snagging and stuff. What you guys are saying. Another way you say that is teepee creeping. Boy, that brings a whole new level of teepee creeping there.
God.
Oh my goodness. I knew I was gonna answer that, but okay.
Man, that's funny. Golly. But man, I couldn't even imagine seeing that, man. I mean,
Yeah.
I hadn't had a lot of my dealings with them with that, this shapeshifter. I hadn't really had a lot of dealings with them. Um, I just have heard stories, but um either Dono or Rod. I know Rod. This is a little when it comes to the shapeshifter thing, and transforming into things. I know that's a little kind of a hot topic. I guess kind of a not kind of something you kind of it can be a little taboo on that end talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, I only know of one story of this, and see, this wasn't bad though. This wasn't a bad one. So my mother was at this doings, these holy doings. I don't know what kind of ceremony it was, but all of a sudden the man leading the ceremony, and he's a well-known one of those old powerful holy men that people talk about uh, in our tribe. We all know him, but I kind of I don't want to name drop him, but because he passed on, and I don't know if his family's okay with that. But anyways, so as he was holding that ceremony, he told everybody, he says, y'all pray hard, pray really hard. He says, I'm getting called. They're calling me to Chief Mountain, and I need to go. He says, so you guys just pray hard, just keep praying until I come back. And so the guys that were singing kept singing, and everybody just really started praying, praying that he makes it back, praying that, whatever he has to do is going to go good, things like that. And all they hear is feathers flapping, wings flapping, and he flew out of there. And so what happened? Just to clarify, is he shapeshifted into a spirit of an eagle, flew out of that place, went all the way to Chief, and then finally flew back and told him, he says, when he comes back, they could hear him come in, and he landed where he was sitting, and he started talking again. It went good. It went good. Thank you for praying. It went good. Sounded exhausted. And and continued the rest of the ceremony, whatever they were doing. Yeah, that's the only time I've ever heard of that happening in my tribe, anyways. But yeah, that's it. It's kind of a
Mm-hmm.
crazy story, but yeah.
Yeah, that is. Man.
Yeah, I got more.
Wait,
Sorry.
oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Ryan.
I was gonna say there is one more. I forgot because this was recent. 2 months ago, something like that happened at my mom's house. It happened to her, and I was telling these stories before on here's here's these girls from the Dene people, the Navajo people. They tell stories on TikTok. Blue and Nicole, and anyways, I was telling her this story. I just wanted to give them a shout out because I think Blue might be listening to us right now. But at my mom's place, she was out digging in her car. She had forgot something out there and it was dark. Well, she has a gate where she pulls into her yard. It's like a little driveway on the side of her yard where she parks. It's all gated. And she's got a regular gate that leads to the front door. Well, she forgot something in her car and she thought because she heard something too after she was done finding what she needed, and she stopped by her front gate to the door and she opens it because she heard something down the road, and she kind of opens it, peeks down the road, and she sees this man walking. He's got no shirt on and he's got no shoes. He's just got pants on, and my mom thought, oh, poor guy, he got kicked out just like that, huh? He must have gotten in a fight with this woman. She was thinking, and so well, I'm gonna get back into my shed because I don't want him to see me, and maybe he's drunk and he'll start bothering me. So I went back into her shed that's attached to the main house, and got windows in it and stuff all around, like a little sunroom. And she thought, well, I'm just gonna stand here and I'm gonna watch him, make sure he goes by and don't bother around. And um, he stops by her trash can and he's digging in there, digging in her trash can. And she said she was about to open that door and say, "Hey, what are you doing out there? Get away from there. You shouldn't be digging in there, you know." And as soon as she was getting ready to say something and open that door, his eyes shoot straight up right at her, looking her right in the eyes. And there's at night you can't see in her shed like that. You can't. So she was hidden in the darkness, and she but he looked right at her. And as soon as he did that, he started crawling, like bear crawling, you know, like how you do in gym class, like bear crawling.
Mm-hmm.
And she said he started acting like a dog. I was wondering, what the hell's this guy on? Oh, he must be really high or something. And he crawls toward that gate where they pull in at. And he peeked up over that gate and he went back down. All of a sudden, this husky looking dog, you know, a husky or a Malamute, jumps that fence into her yard, and she's still standing in her shed, and it's looking at her, and it goes all the way up her little ramp to the other side, past the front door to the other side. There's another little window on that side, and it stands up on its hind legs, and it's just looking at her, like looking, and she gets too scared, and she just turns away and walks into her main door and locks everything up, and she starts praying, and she finally went to sleep. But that next morning, she goes out and she's looking because it kind of rained a little bit, and she was gonna see the tracks, and there were human tracks around here and there, like on the outside there. But what came in weren't dog prints; they were again split hoof prints.
Ooh.
Oh
But
my goodness.
what she seen was a dog, but on her porch, it was heavy enough that it actually indented, like broke her porch a little bit because it's just this flat board going up that ramp. It broke a little piece in there, and it's a split hoof that's broke right there.
Mm.
But, but yeah, that's the I guess the only other story I've heard about kind of shape shifting things on our res, anyways.
Man.
Man. Donald, you got anything out that way like that?
Yeah, my cousin told me a story, and I hope I can remember it. It's on my podcast as well. There was this little girl. It was my cousin's granny, and she used to get babysat by this couple. I think it was her uncle and aunt, and they'd always tell her to go to bed pretty quite early, and the little girl could hear something. So she was by the stovepipes, and she was looking between them, so that the couple wouldn't see. And then she saw them, and they were holding hands, and they started singing this song, and they kept singing and singing and singing. And all of a sudden, this their bodies dropped to the floor, and the little girl could hear something outside. She looked, and there was two black dogs running away. So they shapeshifted into those black dogs. I'm not sure what they did on their little adventures, but yeah, they'd come back in the morning, and they go back in their bodies.
Mm,
Yeah.
man. Yeah, the like I said, the shapeshifter thing to me is really creepy.
Yeah.
Another thing, we hit the 2 hour mark. Is everybody doing all right?
Doing all
Mhm.
right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
doing
We
good.
we want to keep going, or we want to, or we want to wind it
I'm good.
down? I'm gonna
I
leave it up to y'all.
I say we up the ante and we each tell one or two of the scariest stories we ever heard.
Okay. Okay. Well,
Everybody okay
Rod,
with
since
that?
yeah, hey, we good with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that snake one is my scariest.
Okay,
uh,
so this story personally scares me the most. I guess it's up there. It's one of those that, yeah. So the house I grew up in, my grandpa's house, he had an otter bundle in there, and nothing was ever able to get in that house because of that bundle. But when he passed away, my uncle inherited the house, and the bundle got transferred to my uncle, one of my other uncles that could take care of it. And so that house didn't have that protection in there anymore that it used to have when I stayed there one summer with my wife, and we never got bothered. Nothing ever happened. Really nice and peaceful in there. Well, as time went on and my uncle inherited the house, he was out of town with his wife, and um, the oldest kid I think was in the army or something like that at the time, and the youngest one went with them. So it was just the two girls there, and I'm going to say their names just so I don't confuse myself. Um, the older girl was Taryn, and the younger girl was Raquel, and those are my two cousins, first cousins. And um, Taryn was staying home waiting for Raquel to get back because Raquel decided to go up the creek and go visit some of her friends, but told her she'd be back late at night. And so Taryn's just kind of waiting up for her, then ends up going to sleep. And at some point, she wakes up, and Raquel's in her room, but the light's not on. And Raquel has like this tote bag over her shoulder, and she's got this chair pulled up, close to her, kind of close to her bed, and she's staring at Taryn in her sleep. And Taryn's like, "Whoa, Raquel, you okay? What's wrong with you? You all right?" And Taryn needs glasses; she can't see that well, so she's kind of like squinting and trying to get a better look, and gets a little closer to her, and here Raquel is just smiling at her, sitting there all creepy, smiling at her. But her
Mm.
smile goes up to her ears. It goes up
Oh.
that far. And as she's looking really close, you can see the like light from that outside light. A little bit's glinting off her teeth, and she has like these long, sharp-looking teeth, is what it looked like to her. She said, but she's smiling with that kind of a
Mm.
smile, and she's like, jumps back on the bed, like, "Whoa, are you okay? What's wrong? What's wrong with you?" Just like looking at her, and Raquel stands up. Her body turns around and she walks out the door, but her head never leaves Taryn.
Uh,
So as she walks out the door and closes it behind her, she's still looking at her the whole time while her body's moving forward. And she can hear her rustling around in that little linen closet out in the hallway, in the living room, in the kitchen, moving around, walking around in there. And she's terrified. She just sits there for a while and eventually goes to sleep, but she didn't want to go out that door. She eventually fell asleep, and when she woke up in the morning, she kind of peers out, starts looking around, makes her way out and to the living room, and she sees Raquel sleeping on the couch. And she's like, Raquel, Raquel, Raquel. Like, you were acting really weird last night. You were in my room staring at me, and it was weird. And she told the whole story of what she's seen, and Raquel's like, no, I I got dropped off up by the dumpster, and I walked down. It's about a 200-yard walk, and she says, and I walked down, and as I was passing the big garbage can, there was I thought it was a wild dog, but here it was just a coyote. It was peeking at me from the side of that dumpster, and I just walked around it and start coming to the house, but I was looking back, and when I looked back, it walked around the other side of the dumpster to look at me from there, and when I seen it, it was smiling. Like,
Mm.
and it had this smile that went up to its ears. And she said, and coyotes don't smile like that. And so they're sitting there comparing notes and trying to figure out what happened that night. But that was the whole story. That was everything that happened. She didn't go in her room, and whatever it was bothering them, though, like I said, we never got bothered like that when we were there. And so whatever that was really raising hell with them that night.
Mm.
So yeah, that's one of my scariest that I know of.
Dang.
I'll go ahead and let you go, Levon. I know. I was like, well, I was like, well,
I'm
who
just
wants to
sitting here
who wants to follow
visioning
that one?
that.
I'm 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 sitting here like, what scary story? Because, like he said, his niece has a lot of scary things happen to her, and that's me. That's what made me start the Facebook page. So I'm sitting here thinking, and I do have a story. And I don't know, I have a couple, but I'll tell you this one. I worked down here in a hospital, and there was three girls. There's me, a white lady, and a Mexican. So it sounds like a joke when you first start out, right? A native, a white, and a Mexican. We all got hired at the same time, and we went down to this hospital. And they were getting ready to close and move to a different location, but it's one of the most famous hospitals down here. I mean, it was constantly busy, gunshots, people dying, this and that. And so when we got there, the lady, she says, okay, she says, well, what does everybody want to do? And she says, I have three openings, one for the upstairs, just cleaning the room. She said, another one cleaning the ER, and the last one was cleaning the morgue. Me being native, of course, I'm not going to pick the morgue, right? And I didn't want to pick the ER neither because, you have 15 minutes to get this room clean. It doesn't matter if there's blood splatter everywhere. You have to have that done. So, the lady the Mexican lady, her name's Connie, my friend Connie. She decided she wanted to do the ER because she was really good at just dealing with stuff like that. Then my friend Anne, the white lady, she said, you know what? I don't believe in nothing. She says, I'm not scared of nothing. I'll take the morgue. So I said, okay, so I'll clean the rooms. And that's how we went about. And lunchtime we'd go meet up with each other, go outside, go have a cigarette, eat, whatever. So one day, Connie didn't go to work, and they asked me to do the ER for that morning shift. I said, sure, and then I'll go upstairs. So I finally get off the ER and I go upstairs, and my boss calls me and she says, you need to go check on Anne. And I'm all like, okay, and I go downstairs to the morgue. And when you see the back of someone going inside, you see the foot go inside the door or something. That's what I saw. But she had to wear the long coats because there's a lot of chemicals and stuff in that morgue that they use. So she always wore this long coat to go in there and clean. So I saw her go in, I saw the long coat. Before I even say anything though, I was telling Rod, there's a red light outside of this door, right? And the only time it would blink is when they would take a body in there. I don't know why, but you could see it every time they took a body in there, it would blink. any person that was alive or something, it wouldn't blink at all. So when she was going in the door, it blinked. And I thought, God, that was weird, you know. I said, but that was her. So I follow her in there, and in there there's this room with the gurney where they start processing the body and stuff. And then you could go to the back, and there's another room in the back, and that's the freezer room where they keep the bodies and a couple, you know, hospital supplies and stuff to the left. It's a closet, a big closet, but it never had the light that worked. So I watched her go in that room, and so I was trying to call her, but I thought maybe she didn't hear me. So I followed her in there, and then I see her leg going into the freezer room, and no one's in there but her. So I'm like, okay, you know. So I'm calling her again. She didn't hear me, so I said, okay, I'm gonna go follow her. I go into that room, and there was no one around. No one was
Oh
in there.
man.
But so I thought, oh my gosh, you know, like what the hell's going on? And I was like, I start hearing scratches and moaning and growling and shit in that freezer. Excuse me, sorry. But I'm hearing this in the freezers because that whole wall was full of freezers. You know, it's like I'm hearing things, and I'm like, well, you know what? I'm out of here. I turned to go hit the door, and the lights shut off on me, and the door wouldn't open.
Wow.
I'm sitting there, and I'm crying, like almost gonna have a heart attack, right? So I start praying, you know. So the door finally opens, and I get into the gurney room, and same thing, the lights go off. And so since I knew the place, I start feeling along the wall where the cabinets were, where all the supplies were, and I swear I felt a body, a dead body there. And I just was like, oh, I got to get out of here. So I get to the door, and I'm trying to open it, and it would not open for me or nothing. And I start hearing like something slithering towards me and growling. And I'm all
Oh
like,
my
this is not
goodness.
happening. Yeah, I'm like, this is not happening. And I just start praying. I was just going to break down. And you know, I was just done. But the door finally opens. And so I get out, and I call my boss, and I'm like, I'm going across the street. I'm going to go smoke. I told her what happened. I said, I don't know if I want to come back to this job. And she says, oh, because she was the one that told me to call. She called me, and she says, go down there and see your friend. Something happened. So I find her across the street, and we're like smoking a pack of cigarettes between both of us, right? And I asked her, I said, what's going on? And I didn't want to tell her my story because I thought, well, something happened. So, you know, I'm going to wait for her to tell me hers. And she's like, I don't want to talk about it. She says, I'm not myself right now. And she says, just come to the house and talk to me. So I go home. And the next day I'm sitting there like, well, well, I don't work there, but do I really want to go back? I did. I went back, and when I got there, my boss told me that she quit. Not only did she quit, you know, I guess Connie quit too.
Man.
And so, yeah, so we went to go visit. Connie came to pick me up. We went to go visit Anne. And when we got to her house, when she opened the door, it was not her. Like she just looked rough. So we sat down, and she's like, well, she said, I think I brought something home with me. She says, but the thing is I don't believe in this shit, you know? She says, my son's acting like he's possessed. And you could hear him growling in his bedroom. She's like, you know, and you could hear things flying around. You could hear I was ready to get out of there. Like I couldn't do this. There's no way I could do it. But yeah, I after that I quit, and I think that was the scariest thing that happened to me.
Man. I got
Damn.
goosebumps on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've told Rod some scary stories, but I think I never really told anyone that story, and that's probably one of my scariest stories. But I have it on Facebook on the ghost original ghost stories, and I even got a call from a TV show that wanted to put that story on air, but I wasn't too ready to do it to relive that story.
Mm.
Yeah,
Man, that's
Oh,
probably a top 5 story I've heard.
yeah.
Yes.
Man. You know, Rod's got one in there, and that's why y'all three are on this panel, man, because y'all all three got stories that like I'm just like, man, man. So I guess it's my turn, huh?
Hmm.
All right. I've only told this story one time. One time. I told it live at Hominy at Osage Country. But I'll tell it live here tonight. So I was a senior in high school, and my parents just bought me. I'm about to graduate high school. My parents just bought me a used Grand Prix. Dang that! I know. I was about to say brand new car, but it's Grand Prix. And me and my buddy, we like to meal around and whatnot at night. But leading up to the night that I had something happen to me, I lay like first night. I'm always real weird about my door being closed at night. I just every time my parents would open the door, I'd say, "Why you open my door?" "Oh, we're trying to let the draft in. It's hot. We want to make sure the air's flowing or whatever." One night, just got this Grand Prix, and I'm laying there, and I'm a real kind of easy sleeper sometimes. But something, and I always have dreams too. This is another kind of weird part of the story. Um, and there's a lot that led up to this story too. But I'm just going to tell the scariest part. So I have these dreams, and a lot of times in my dreams, it'll be myself telling me, wake up," and that was myself that night, that first night. Myself said, "Wake up," and so I woke up, and the door was open, about halfway cracked, and so I get up and I get up and close it, and I tell my parents, I said, "Hey, I want y'all. Can y'all not just open my door? Just leave it closed." And the door is a sliding door, so if you're real quiet, you can kind of open it without waking somebody up. And if you just open it fast, it kind of makes this wheel sound. And my mom and dad are like, "We didn't open that door." And so next culprit would be my brother, but my brother never came in my room at night. He would stay in his room. And so I kind of just was like, "All right, whatever." Second night, this is maybe within a week. Um, I'm asleep and I'm telling I'm having that same kind of dream. And that's a detail I have in the first time I didn't really tell, but uh, when I told it the first time ever. But I'd had dreams, and I told myself to wake up again, and so I woke up, and it looked like a dark shadow. It looked like something opened the door, and a really dark shadow moved into the room, and I kind of closed my eyes again, and I was like, "What was that?" Oh, maybe I'm just in my head. I'm laying in bed. It's pitch black in my room. I got these blackout curtains, and I'm like, well, maybe that was just my eyes. So I ended up going back to sleep. Sometime later, week or so, that same thing happens again a third time, and I wake up, but I notice there's something standing in the corner of the room, and it's darker than the room,
Mm.
and I'm getting goosebumps. Golly, I'm visualizing, and what the shadow looked like, it had a hat, a real tall hat.
Ooh.
And I'm looking, I'm like, what is that? And I'm really looking like but I'm not moving. And people say, well, sleep paralysis, but I wasn't paralyzed. Like I wasn't, I remember, kind of like rolling over and kind of like acting, you kind of fake, your parents come in the room, oh, I'm asleep, act like he's asleep. That's what it felt. That's what I did. So I act like I rolled over and rolled back over to see if I can get another glimpse at it, and it's still there. And so I ended up falling back asleep, and it stayed there. My cat just creeped me out, man. He's at the door, got his paw underneath the door. Ah, I know, man. I start getting the spidey sense. Anyways, so I'm seeing this shadow in this room. So when we moved into the house, there was a man who passed, in that house who we inherited the house from. It was a real old house he built with his own hands. And I would see him. The first night we stayed there, I saw him walk from the bathroom or from the room to the bathroom and then back. And so I always thought, I kind of was like, oh, maybe it's him. Maybe he just had a hat that, so I was trying to explain it in my head. And I was seeing him, pretty regularly. And I felt like I was scared, but I wasn't scared. So one night, me and my buddy in my quote unquote brand new Grand Prix that I got for graduating high school, we're driving and it's not late, but it's late. It's getting late, and we're driving to this party, um, headed, basically headed to I believe it was Claremore. I believe it where I was going. We get to the party. It wasn't that cool. We just, we drove all this way, and we're like, we better hang out for a while. We just hung out, and we ended up leaving. That's it. Well, on our way back, the road we were taking, had one kind of a bend, and it bent to the right. And so I remember before, basically when I'm driving, and I see the turn, and when I'm hitting on the brakes don't work. And I'm hitting them hard. I'm like hitting them, and I look over my buddy, and he's dead asleep. But he had both of his legs up on the dash. He was kicked back. Hey, you kick the seat back and you kick your legs up. And I'm hitting the brakes, and I know we're about to hit this telephone pole. So right as we're about to hit, I moved one of his legs off, out of the windshield. We hit. I'm knocked out. And so when I come to, I don't really know where I'm at. Me and mine, we wrecked at like, I don't know, 2 in the morning. And when I came to, the sun was coming up. And this is in the summertime. When I came to and the sun was coming up, I saw that shadow right on the peripheral of the headlights, standing there looking at me. And his hat, it was darker than the forest, the trees that were behind, that were, on it was like a silhouette. And I remember seeing him. And it was like almost like he dissipated, like he just kind of, it was like a mist, like he just kind of disappeared. When I wake my buddy up, he makes this sound, like this guttural sound. Like, you imagine someone in the ER and you've been pounding on their chest and they finally come to. I mean, I hit his chest so hard. I'm surprised I didn't break his ribs. I was hitting him so hard to try to get him awake. And I remember we hit literally like right next to the telephone pole on the embankment. And we weren't drinking. I'm 17, or I just turned 18, I believe, at the time. Might have just turned 18. He was still about to turn 18. So we're not even drinking. So I hit him hard on the chest. I mean, real hard. He finally comes to, and he does that.
Oh.
And so I end up basically rolling out the car, and I pulled him out, and his foot went through the windshield. And I had to pull his leg through the windshield, and he busted his knee up pretty good. I still feel bad about that to this day. He had to wear a knee brace, playing sports and whatnot. I still think about it all the time, honestly. But this goes into people coming after you, with different medicine, and I've told these stories on my podcast. We rolled out the car, and I remember calling my. This is me being 18, but just turned 18. I called my parents first, then and then I had my buddy call the cops, and I told my parents I totaled this car. This car is toast. I need y'all to come get us. And they're like, where you at? And I'm like, my phone's all, you know, not working correctly. And and my buddy, ends up calling the police or the, paramedic stuff. We end up, basically unscathed. I had, uh, scrapes and stuff like that. And, he obviously hit with his leg and he ended up having to go get it checked out later on. But he was, in good enough shape. They just basically released us with him being under the age of 17 or under the age of 18. And the fire or the paramedic fire department, they looked at the car and they said, you were literally half an inch from killing both of you two.
Oh
Oh my
man.
goodness.
And as I, you know, I graduate, I go to college, I had somebody come up to me one day and they were like, or it was, I was eating this is crazy. I was eating at a barbecue restaurant and I had someone who can see things. They see auras and came up to me and they were like, you have a bright light. You have a very bright light, but there's something around you that's been trying to penetrate that light. I just wanted to tell you this. And I kind of looked at my friends, and they were like looking at me, and because like this is native stuff. They're non-native. They're like, what? Why is she telling you this? And I knew, I
Mhm.
knew. Um, but my buddy, years later, he was like, he's like, that night he just randomly one night just brought it up to me. He said, that night we wrecked. He said, I literally was watching my life, you know, my entire life. And
Mm.
he said, when you pounded on my chest, it was like my spirit went back in my body.
Oh my gosh.
Uh,
And he said that basically I was dead. He said, he's like, you beat my spirit back into me.
Dang.
And, you know, I saw him again one more time. Um, I don't want to talk about that story because I still think about that story. That's a story that I may never tell. Um, but I saw him again um, when I was about to graduate college. Um, but I'll describe him. He had a hat. It looked like he had longer hair, and it looked like he had a jacket on of some sort.
Oh.
But my brother, once I moved out, my brother moved into that room, and my grandpa's funeral or his wake, basically. You know, we all got to look after the body, make sure we got to
Mhm.
do those things. And my brother looked at me and he goes, I know I know what you saw because I see it too. He was seeing shadows in that room, and he said that he'd get scared and he just wouldn't, he just kind of not really want to talk about it, but he would see those things. And he goes, I finally understand what you were talking about when you saw that guy in the corner of your room. So that's my scary story.
Man.
Wow.
I-
What a show, guys! What a show.
That's the actual picture. I have the Hat Man because I do have a story. I think I told it. Did I tell it on Lodge Tales, Rod?
yeah, I think so. I'm pretty sure you
Yeah.
did.
Yeah, that story is pretty. I don't. He sticks with me, and it scares me. So I understand where you're coming from. And bad things do happen after you do see him.
Yeah, so I posted that story. I think I posted it, but it was being live streamed, I think, and someone in the comments was like, "You realize somebody was saving you," and this
Yeah.
goes into medicine. Um, I'll tell a prequel. sorry, Dad, if you're listening, but my grandma was into those things. She knew people. She's Cherokee. I'm. She knows everybody. She's out of Bunch, Oklahoma. Um, in the Cookson Hills area. She was running around there when she was a little younger girl. Um, but she knew people, and she had some things done against not really my grandpa really didn't want her doing that because you got to separate church and the grounds. You got to separate that medicine and that church. It just doesn't mix well.
Hmm.
Um, and he's always said that us Tiger Boys got 9 lives, and I think that was one of my lives. That you know that's what I always equate it to. Um, And someone said, Lisa in the chat goes, "Yeah, you listen to your spidey sense," and ever since that time, I always get this feeling in my neck when something's not right. Um, my uncle's in here too, but but yeah, that story, um, I haven't, like I said, I've only told it once, and it was live streamed and it went away. Um, but yeah, the Hat Man thing, I never knew what it was. I never knew what that was until I started, kind of looking at people's stories and whatnot, and I started seeing people were having that same type of experience.
Mhm. Mhm.
But we're at an hour, a little over 2 hours and a half, guys. I'm calling it. But
Good.
yeah, I appreciate you know everyone that has joined this episode. This was awesome, guys. We're gonna have to run this back. We're going to have to figure out, a time and to run this back because I really had a good time.
Yeah, it
Me
was
too.
great. Thank you for inviting me, and it's nice to meet Levon and talk to Rod.
Me too. And
Yeah,
about your
likewise.
Ouija story, I have a good one for you.
Yeah, let it rip. Hey, let it rip. Let it rip.
Ah, it. If we're gonna do this again, how about I do it then?
Okay,
Because it's
okay,
a yeah, it's a it leads into some other stuff that's happened in my life.
yeah, I like that. Okay, yeah, well, I'll have to get with y'all and like I said, we may run it back. I don't know what y'all got going on for. Maybe we run it back for New Year's Day evening.
That's good. That's my birthday.
Hey, there we go. Or we can do it after your
Yeah.
birthday. We
Oh
can do
no,
it after.
we
But
don't party or don't do anything, so that'll be fine.
yeah, maybe I'll hopefully I know everybody some people like to go pretty hard on New Year's Eve, so I may have to check the tone and see if everybody's all right. No, I'm just kidding. But but maybe that's something we do in the New Year's. We just come up with the date and whatever works and run it back. Because I think we still left a lot of meat on the bone with a lot of scary stories.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Dang, we did. I mean, we didn't even get into the doll stories I have that I wanted to
Oh
share.
man,
And there's also a story where one of my friends, it's kind of sad, but he got stuck after he passed, and there was
Mm.
some things that happened, and I had to help him over, and then it was all right. He quit bothering me, but that's for another live too, you know?
yeah. Well, I guess while we're closing up, um, I guess we'll go around the horn here and see, or I guess let everybody know where they can find you, and I'll lead us off here. My name is Yahola Tiger. I am the host of the Warcry podcast. You can find me on Facebook, Yahola Tiger. Shoot me a message where and tell me where you heard me from, and I'll add you. And then I may ask you a question or something. I don't know, but TikTok Warcry Pod. If you got a story that you'd like to share, or if you got evidence, I have people sending me evidence. You know, you know, every now and then. Um, it's real Warcry Pod at gmail.com. Um, and basically YouTube, Spotify, Apple. Um, you know, I've been on many different interviews and been on things, so you can see me there too. But But that's where you can find me.
All right.
Next.
You go ahead, Levon.
Okay. It's my name is Levon Rodriguez. I'm the creator of the original ghost stories from the Rez. You can find me on Facebook, or my email's levonr38@gmail.com. And come join the page. The more the merrier.
I'm Rez Scares. You can find me on Facebook, Rez Scares. On TikTok, it's Rez Scares and more. I do also have a Rez Scares Instagram. And I have a YouTube channel with one video so far. And yeah, my email address to send spooky stories is rezscares@gmail.com. Thanks.
Okay, Nixoquax. Nitaniko, Xistakiotokan. Nymph Toto, Sixacatapik, Sumpscape Picani. Hello, friends and relatives. My name is Beaverhead. I'm from the Blackfeet people, the Southern Picani Band, and I'm the host of Lodge Tales podcast. You can find me anywhere you find your podcasts, anywhere you get them. It's on Spotify, Audible, Amazon, anywhere. They're out there. There's even a YouTube page for it. You can also find me at lodgetales.com and send stories in there or anything you want from that page alone. And also there's a Facebook group that I have is Lodge Tales too. And yeah, that's where I'm at, and I'm geared strictly toward indigenous ghost stories. I may make an exception for somebody at some point if I hear the right story, and I think my audience would like that. But as of now, that's my niche. It's just indigenous ghost stories, strange things like that. So yeah, give me a follow and stay along for the ride. There's a lot of stories there. And thanks for having me up, Yola. Appreciate it. Thank
Yes.
you, Rez Scares, and thank you, Levon. Y'all are really good people, and I'm glad I met y'all.
Nice. Thank you all. Yeah, same.
Ho ho, thank you all. I enjoyed it.
Great.
All right, guys. You guys heard it here first. We're coming back. We're gonna have to run it back. I appreciate, or we appreciate everyone who has stopped by and they asked a question in the chat. And please, 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 please do us all for a favor: like, share, subscribe, follow. Hey, even comment. That works too. And I appreciate it. We appreciate it. And we're going to catch you guys on the next one.